Hello again, TTRPGers and those who love Fabula Ultima. And if you're new to my channel and you're new to Fabula Ultima, welcome aboard. You're actually coming into a video today that I'm excited to show out because it's another character creation example. And this is in reflection to a post I just put out roughly over 36 hours ago, as I had 4 options of Final Fantasy characters to be the subject that I'm going to be putting into Fabula Ultima, building from ground up to make it reflect the most accurate depiction of how they are presented in the JRPG they are in. And of course, a mechanical relation to it as well. So if you're new to this, welcome aboard. And if you like what you see, hit my subscribe button. And if you're not familiar with my posts or the polls I was putting out and you're subscribed to my channel, if you hit notifications, anytime I post something out, you will get some sort of notification to let you know, hey, you're part of the community. Let's have your 2 cents put in. And I'm always happy to see any type of input or comments when I do any of those, whether they're videos or posts. So without a further ado, we're just going to point over here to see this quick poll, and we're going to go check out on who the winner is. Can't wait to look. Final Fantasy IX's Black Mage, Vivi Ornitier, is one of the strongest and arguably most story-driven Black Mages within the entire game series. More than just a reskin of the Black Mage look from classic entries of the early Final Fantasy franchise, you quickly become intrigued with his initial introduction, as a naive boy where trouble seems to find him at every corner his curiosity brings him to. As you adventure through the game with him and party, his complexities start to unravel, and his power with black magic starts to grow to nearly impossible levels by the game's end. However, before reaching such power, it comes with a roller coaster of emotions, where you take a back seat in seeing a coming-of-age story, filled with a mixture of both humorous and painful growth, heartbreaking revelations that make you want to hold and protect him from, and eventually acceptance that allows him to hone the power he was made to carry. There are many Black Mages throughout Final Fantasy that deserve this spotlight, but today, we put him on stage to be created in Fabula Ultima. I present to you the Black Mage, Vivi Ornitier. All right, welcome back to my stage. Foundry VTT is once again what I'm going to be using in my character creation of Vivi Ornitier. If you have watched my last character creation where I focused on Kane Highwind, I did something different there that I am not going to do today. Where in that first video, and I recommend you watch it, you learn a little bit more about the navigation of character creation using Foundry VTT. Today, it's all about just the character build. And I might have a few snippets of what I'm doing or what I'm looking for, but ultimately, I'm just building the character and explaining to you why I want to go that route. Other than that, it's going to be pretty free-flowing, and we're just going to have a good time trying to build another character. Now, there's also a few more disclaimers on this. I'm going to do my very best to limit spoilers because even in my video introduction, I made sure to have some visuals and understand that there's a character depth to Vivi, but also not give any big revelations that would ruin your experience of not playing the game before. But even with that, I might have a few snippets when it comes to me explaining the traits and the bonds and all of that, because without understanding who the character is, you're not going to understand why I'm doing it. So that's the first piece of information to highly consider. Second, also understand I am doing this as a not just recreational fun for me, but also to explain and show how easy it is to build a character in Fabula Ultima. And if we take someone like Vivi or another Final Fantasy character who has notoriety and you understand, it's easy for me to translate why I'm building them that way. And so ultimately, I just want you to see how easy it is if you have an example. And usually the thing that takes the longest is your creativity. And that should never be what hinders you from creating anything. And then third and final, I want you to understand when it comes to building Vivi, you could probably go 80 different directions. And in Fabula Ultima, the character build formula goes way beyond than the simplification of Vivi being a black mage. And once again, this is about showing how to just build the character starting and going forward. So at no point am I trying to min-max the most sensibility out of this. I'm going to basically build them as I would seeing them level a bit in Final Fantasy, the progression they would have in their spells, because in honesty, while I love Vivi on the narrative side, a black mage is pretty simplistic when it comes to what you're going to build into. But neither here or there. You can still do some fun things and really understand the core values of Fabula Ultima's game system when building characters, and then just applying it to a fun character like Vivi, or like I did in the past video, Kane. So, without further ado, we're going to get going, and we're going to start building this wonderful black mage. All right, I just had a cup of coffee, I got my creative juices going, and just wanted to point up above me that I have put in the core rulebook's sequential order on how to create a character. I'm going to be trying to follow this as best possible, but just a quick reminder, when I'm using Foundry VTT, the game system Project FU actually has automation built into it. So there's a few sequential things that are recommended, but it's automatically done when I select some other things. So I just want you to understand that's what's happening when I'm creating in this system. But it's not really that harder or slower to do things in pen and paper, or inputting a PDF, or even using Fultimator, which I'll probably do a video of character creation using Fultimator soon as well. But really, all you have to understand is just follow the order and you will find success in this character creation. Just know, if you want to understand a little bit more of how Foundry worked in this process, check out my Kane Highwind video. I go more in depth to that. That being said, we're going to get started. And I'm going to go ahead and go to my actor creation. There we see good old Kane Highwind we made from last video. I'm going to go ahead and start here and put in its name. And actually, it does say on Section 8 of Create a Character is name your character. But because the process of Foundry needing a name, I'm going to go ahead and just put it in. I'm not going to just leave it as blank because it's just easy and free flow for me to do it this way. But there we go. We got him up. And I'm going to just give an image of him, which I'm pretty sure I have already uploaded. There it is. There he is, the good little black mage, little wizard boy that everyone has just learned to love if you've played Final Fantasy IX. For some reason in Foundry, it puts them in crisis when you start the character. It's kind of weird, but I'm just going to do a long rest and get rid of that. Now, when it comes to starting the character, we're going to look at the very top, and it says to create an identity. And identity is kind of unique for Vivi, because when he's first brought into the game, and pretty extensively into the beginning sections of it, there's a lot of mystique and mystery, and not a lot of understanding of who he is, why he's here, what he's doing, or anything like that. You just see him as this kind of innocent, naive boy. He doesn't really understand a lot of things that are going around him. He trusts everyone and everything that's given to him, and it's adorable, but also kind of sad. You want to smack your head when he makes decisions in the game that you're just like, Vivi, no. But nonetheless, I want to go ahead and just say for now, I'm going to go with the identity as the black mage looking for purpose. I mean, that's literally I'm going to put for now. And the great thing about Fabula Ultima is not you adapt very quickly. And with that, we're down with the section 1. The next is theme, which I'm going to just tab over. Yeah, 2 is your character seeing a strong ideal emotion that is dominating the character's actions. Now, I'm going to go ahead and my editing throw up the theme list that I did not do on my last video, but there is, I'm actually looking at my core rulebook right here over the theme list. There is a few options that we could really go with on this, because since he's kind of just wandered into what is I believe the city of Alexandria, and he is just so taken back by its larger than life existence, and throughout the early game he is just very curious about everything. I don't think he comes in with anything that is profound as far as being doubtful or dark. The themes I'm thinking is either ambition, where it says you strive to prove your worth to yourself and or others. I think that's a very good consideration. But there's also belonging, where it says you are afraid of being alone, forgotten, or abandoned, which I think he could qualify using that at some point, but isn't quite there in the earlier rounds of the game. Then we are going to go ahead and consider hope. You seek a better world for yourself and others. I think that's a good approach, but of those 3, I really like ambition. Because, as I said, you strive to prove your worth of yourself and others. Maybe that's not he's striving for it, but he's looking for an opportunity to understand who he is, what he's doing, why he's there. So I think ambition is the perfect theme for now. And if anyone knows throughout the game, that is very subject to change. Now, on section 3, we look at origin. And it says you create your character's origin, the place they hail from, or you may select a location from the world sheet if you're playing from a different game. Since we're being inspired from Final Fantasy IX, there's another few ways you could go with this with Vivi. You could say, basically, you could just go with lands unknown, because when you're first brought into the game, you don't know where he's from, and you don't know anything about him. It's almost watching someone with amnesia to a certain extent, discovering who they are. So, but you do also learn a little bit later that he has affiliations outside of the city of Trino, and also the city of Dali. So I'm going to go ahead just for now, and go ahead and put unknown, because I'm really trying to build him probably early entry into the game, where it's not so much the first few levels of the game, but I would say probably the first fourth of in his adventure to discover who he is and what he's all about. So that being said, we've got already creation 1, 2, and 3 out of the way. Now we're going to go into option 4, which is selecting the classes. And it's to remind you that in Fabula Ultima, you'll see up here, and it also says in the core rulebook, when you start a character, you have 5 levels to work with. You don't start at level 1, you start with 5. And you must multi-class into at least one other class with an up to a total of 3. Once you've established those 3 classes, you may not add another class until you've mastered one, which means going all the way to level 10. But right now, I'm going to aim for like getting into level 10, maybe 15 to see how this builds. But of course, since we start at level 5, we have decisions to make. So first and foremost, Vivi's a black mage. And when I think of that at the very get-go, you think the elements. You think fire, ice, thunder, lightning, however you want to define it. And then there's more specialty elements that are not the core in most black mages when they start on. So the first thing I'm going to consider is for my black mage is going to be Elementalist. I think it's the most sensible, and I just don't think you can have a black mage without using elemental spells. So that's the first class we're going to put in. But then I need a second. And when it comes to casting, there is a few other spell arcane disciplines, and I just actually went over that in my magic spells and rituals video. If you haven't checked that out, it's a great video. But I think Spiritist, being light magic and a lot of manipulation of mood, isn't really there. The Chimerist isn't quite there. So I'm thinking Entropist, because Entropist uses chaos magic and time manipulation and things like that. And I think that is a great secondary injection to build Vivi into. Because not only, I think at later levels, you start to see spells like haste and slow and stop that are all available spells in the Entropist. You're going to see other things that are based off chaos magic that would be similar to like Drain and Osmose, which where you consume a target's hit points or magic points for the benefit of the caster. So that's where I think I'm going with that. So we're going to start with Elementalist, and then we're going to work also with Entropist to get our first 5 levels. So with that, I'm going to go through my little booklet here on Foundry, since it's just easier for me to navigate and show that with less production needed and less editing. So we're going to go find Elementalist right here. And I don't think I can make it too much larger for it to read, but there's a lot to work with here. And keep in mind, like I said, you have 5 levels. You put a class level each time, and every time you put a class level in, you get a skill. And that is what I'm currently looking at, is the Elementalist skills. So we have Cataclysm, which is a pretty cool skill to consider. It says when you cast an instantaneous spell, if you have an arcane weapon equipped, which Vivi will almost always, you may increase the spell's total MP cost up to skill level times 10, which if I would have put 1 point in it, it would be basically 10 mind points. If you do so, and the spell deals damage to one or more creature, it will deal 5 extra damage to each creature for every 10 mind points by which you increase that total MP cost. Now, the key thing to look at right here, it says SL3, and this is just an abbreviation for by Foundry, but you'll also see the core rulebook has showcases of how to define it. Basically, that means skill level 3 means you can only put 3 levels of the skill into your character build. You cannot build any more than that, because it then starts to get to a point where the intent of it becomes broken and a little unfair for just progressing throughout the game. So keep in mind, if you're going to put time into this, always look and see how many skill level you can invest in before you start building your character. But I also have elemental magic, which I went through in a showcase of the spells video. Anytime you gain a level and you invest a skill of elemental magic, you get to pick one spell from the elemental spellbook, and that's how you gain your spells. And that's probably where a majority of my elementalist investments are going to be. But I just want to go over a quick rundown of the rest options. And as you can see up here, it says SL10. You can put all 10 skill levels into just learning spells and never have any other skill invested in it, and that's okay. It's all about building the way you want to build. But as we go below that, we then have magic artillery. When you cast an offensive spell, if you have an arcane weapon equipped, you gain a bonus to your magic check equal to skill level times 2. So magic check is basically your accuracy check using magic. So I once again did that in the past video. So people who use martial abilities use accuracy, casters use magic. So what that means is when you roll your die, you're going to add a bonus based on this. So if you put just, and if you look right here, you can do it up to 3 times. If you put in 1 skill level, invest in it, it's times 2. So immediately you get a +2 to your magic checks to see if it hits the magic defense of your targets. And not gonna lie, that's pretty broken. And maybe not broken, but very useful, because in Fabula Ultima, probably one of the best things you can get is the increase of the ability to hit something. You can of course find that in items as well, but it's very worth considering. Do not go too invested as a GM giving them items early on, or they're never going to miss. So if you're going to invest a character to hit early and hit hard, this is something to consider, and I might put a point into this one. Then we have ritual elementalism, which I went once again into the ritual video. Basically, I would have to invest 1 point in this to be able to start casting rituals that are based around using the elements. Like if I wanted to, let's say there was a big gas of threatening gas that is making it into the city, I could maybe do a ritual that would start hitting big gusts of wind and push it out of the city where it dissipates into nothingness in the atmosphere. Or if I needed to there was an avalanche that had kept us from getting into a cave, I might be able to summon up a big source of magma or heat, fire, to be able to melt into another entry into it. Things like that. But that's all relevant to the elements. You could not use another ritual style to do those type of things. So it's always worth considering investing in that. Then there's Spellblade. Whenever you cast an offensive spell targeting a single creature, if the spell has a total mind point cost of skill level times 10 or lower, and you have 1 or more bow, brawling, dagger, flail, spear, or swords equipped, you may choose one of those weapons. If you do, your magic check for the spell will use those chosen weapons accuracy. If you do, your magic check for the spell will use the chosen weapon's accuracy check formula. For instance, the magic check for an elemental spell, caster a bronze sword, using the core rulebook, would be Dex plus Might plus 1 instead of Insight plus Willpower. So this can definitely be used for the use of other other class builds that are going to be more melee based, but you have a touch of arcane. And that's something to remind yourself and remember when you're creating things in Fabula Ultima. Just because you're thinking, oh, I'm an elementalist, that doesn't automatically mean black mage is going to be your focus. This is just a selection of options that give you really cool abilities that can allow you to multi-class and have awesome hybrid creations that go with both melee and magic. And then finally, we have the elementalist spells below. We'll be going over that very quickly here in a minute once we start investing in element. So if we go back to this, once again, we have 5 levels to work with. I'm going to probably invest my first 4 into elementalist, and since I have to multi-class into another, I'm going to do my first level into entropy. So we're going to go ahead and get the elementalist part figured out. I honestly think in this, like I said, this is where I try not to be where I'm trying to min-max how I would play the character versus how Vivi is. So I'm gonna probably wait to do any magic artillery, because in all games of Final Fantasy, you know, you all kind of start lower end and build your way up. It wouldn't make sense at me to build him in to immediately have full effect of hitting more accurate. But at the same time, if you're not hitting, you're not very useful. So I think you just watched me on air basically talk myself back into taking magical artillery. So I'm going to do one skill level of that. So move that over here. I'm going to drag my first level into here. You'll see it drop. I'm going to move the character sheet just a bit more so you can see that. And as you can see, of my 5 levels, I'm going to go ahead and put... Oh, I forgot to throw class in there. My bad. Got so far ahead of myself. Elementalist. Oh, I think I dropped the class into there. That's how it works. Yeah, boom. Okay, so now my math's math in here. So I have 5 levels, 1 level class invested inside Elementalist, and I took Magic Artillery, and that's already automated into my magic rolls going forward. Then I'm going to go to another level of Elementalist. We level up. There's 2. So I'm going to do my first Elemental Magic skill. Drop that in there. And there we go. We have 2 skills are invested. I've got 1 in Elemental Magic, 1 in Magical Artillery. Since I'm invested in Elemental Magic, I am now going to go pick my very first spell. And I'm going to be probably pretty quick about this, because the next 3 are going to be Elemental Magic on all 3 primary elements, most likely. So I'm going to keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and do Elemental list spells. And you can see there's a fine list here. And I mean, I think almost every black mage that starts in most games, your primary spell is going to be fire. So we're going to go actually use the spell I used in the spells and rituals. I'm going to find Ignis, which Ignis is you unleash a searing barrage against your foes, conjuring flames out of thin air. Each target hit by the spell suffers high roll plus 15 fire damage. And the key thing is, if you roll you roll a crit and have an opportunity, each target hit by the spell suffers shaken. I think it's an awesome entry level spell to have. And the reason why I'm actually going with these, the first 3, I'm going with these because you have the option to do single damage or group damage towards other targets. And I think that is going to be the most important thing early on when you're playing this character in Fabula Ultima. So in my spells, I'm going to just drop Ignis into here. Boom, there's my spell. So we're going to close that out just for now, and we're going to go back to another investment in Elementalist for a 3rd level. I'm going to then take a 2nd investment in Elemental Magic, go and take my next spell, which, like Ignis, I'm going to take Glacies, which is basically the ice equivalent of Ignis. The only difference is you see in the damage type, you see that the opportunity each target hit with the spell suffers slow. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in. It popped up my spells. Yep, there's my 2 spells. And you're kind of just seeing the rinse and repeat here. Once you kind of have a plan, it's pretty easy to conduct and get done pretty quickly. So let's see here. We're 3, 3, 3. My 4th investment of Elementalist is once again 1 more spell of Elemental Magic. And I'm going to take the lightning version of it, which is Fulgor. You just throw that on there, and it, just like I said, it's lightning damage instead of the others, and it says each target hit by the spell suffers daze if you're able to do some sort of crit. So throw that in there, and my spell list is growing. So right now I have 4 levels of Elementalist invested into this character, and if you notice right here in Foundry, it gave me extra mind points. The reason because of that is, remember, when you select classes for the first time, you're going to see right here that you get things to start with. So I've already learned Ritualism now, and I get +5 mind points. That's why you see that extra bit of the pool. But we're going to go ahead, and since I cannot max out all 5 levels into one class, you have to multiclass. This is where I'm going to jump into Entropist. And we're just going to drag Entropist over into here. And I'm now level 5. I have 5 of 5 of classes invested now that I've added that Entropist into it. And the first thing we're going to do with Entropist is I'm going to bring that up and looking at your skills. First and foremost, since I did another investment, they permanently increase your maximum mind points by 5. So he's now got 55 mind points. And as I said in the ritual video, since I've already invested in Elementalist, I've got the ritualism discipline. You don't really gain anything from taking it from another arcane discipline or any type of magic discipline. But I'm looking at the skills here where we have Entropist skills. We have Absorb MP, which can go up to 5 skill levels. It says after you suffer damage, you immediately recover skill level times 2 mind points. So if you invested 5 full levels into this, every time you're hit, you're going to gain 10 mind points back, which is really awesome for sustainability if that's what you want to go to. And when it comes to Vivi being in this game, I think sustainability is nice, but it's going to be more of a later decision. I want there to be more of a direct impact of him having some sort of regain of mind points, and I'm going to show where I'm going to do that here in a minute. Then we have Entropic Magic, which is just like the Elementalism magic skill set. You basically allows you to, every time you take a skill level, you're going to get a spell in sequence of what investments you have into it. Then you have Lucky 7. You have a lucky number. At the beginning of each session, that number is 7. Once per scene, after you perform a check, you may replace the value shown on one of the dice you roll with your lucky number, even if this would give an impossible result, such as a value of 7 on a d6. If you do, its replaced value becomes your new lucky number. This is where handling the structures of time and chaos starts getting really cool about this, as this isn't a spell. This is just a skill that's fun to utilize as a possible consideration. And it's pretty cool to think that you can do these type of things with this and try to put things in your favor. Then we have Ritual Entropism. Just like I said in Elementalism, you have to invest your 1 skill point into this to be able to do entropism-based rituals. So just like I said with the elemental existence of like manipulating wind and fire, you couldn't do that with an entropist unless you had some you were invested in the elemental discipline of rituals. Same thing if you're an elementalist, you cannot do an entropist ritual without this investment. And when I think of rituals involved that, there's a lot of cool things you could do considering time. You could like decay something physically to erode it to the point where you might be able to gain entry, like a lock. I even read, I can't remember if I read it or saw it in an actual play where there was, I think it's actually in the core rulebook, where they talk about being in some ancient ruins, and there is this lock that exists that is not in full form existence, and the person used a ritual to basically focus on that big mechanical lock and send it back in time where it reconstructed into a new form. And that is so cool to think that you can just do that with creativity as long as you meet the mechanical values and successes of the roles of ritualism. So that being said, I'm probably not going to jump into that with Vivi. That doesn't seem very sensible to his character, at least early on. Once he gets higher level, he is basically an entropist as well. He manifests from the cosmos, chaos, time. It's pretty great. Then we have Stolen Time. During a conflict, you may use an action to interfere with the flow of time by spending up to skill level times 5 mind points. For every 5 mind points you spend this way, choose one option. One creature you can see suffers slow, or one creature you can see recovers from slow. One creature you see may immediately perform an equipment action for free, which is cool. You could have them do some sort of switching out an item or shield or something like that, so they're not wasting their turn. Awesome little support ability. Or choose an ally you can see who has yet to take a turn during this round. That ally may take their turn immediately after yours during this round. Each option can only be chosen once per use of this skill. As you can see, getting to mess with Entropist really gets crazy when it comes to the order of combat and all that. And I still haven't done a video on combat and probably will be doing it very soon. But if you want to do anything that kind of manipulates time or puts in your favor, always consider an Entropist. And then, of course, we have the Entropist breakdown spells. And like I said, since I have 1 level of investment to go to cap out this first 5 levels, I'm actually going to go into Entropic Magic. and bring up the spells here. And split this out just a bit here. And I'm going to throw the skill level Entropic Magic. So that's my first skill level invested in it, so I'm going to pick my first spell. And I did premeditate this, and so there might be a little bit of, I don't want to say falsehood of how easy this is. I just already knew, thinking about this, how I wanted to build him. So like I said, your creativity is the only thing that's going to slow you down in building. I already thought, since he's going to start at level 5 and he's going to be using a lot of mind points at times to do things, I don't want to always use like elixirs and inventory points or rely on my party to be sustaining by mana pool. So I'm going to go ahead and take the very first spell of Drain Spirit and move that into. And what Drain Spirit is you consume a creature's psyche. The target loses high roll plus 15 mind points. So you're already draining some of their offense, which is awesome. Then you recover an amount of mind points equal to the half mind points loss they suffered. If the loss was reduced to 0 in some way, you recover none. So it's really cool to know early on I can, for a very remedial amount of 5 mind points, if I roll high, I can gain some back and still have some sort of effect in battle by removing some of their threat as the target's mind. So that being said, I have level 5 conducted. Technically, you're ready to play basically a character when it comes for the classes. But I'm going to go ahead and make sure everything else is built into the level 5, and then we're going to build into the rest at level 10. So we have finished section 4. We are now going to go into section 5, where it says determine the base die size of your character. So to attributes, scores dexterity, insight, might, and willpower. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and throw a little quick chart here to explain what options you have. There are multiple things you can do to have the rundown of finding out what you're going to invest in, but there's really only 3 options. There's Jack of all trades, which is all across your board of your attributes here. They're all D8s, which is what I have Vivi currently defaulted at on here. Then there's average of using a D10, 2 D8s, and a D6. And then there's specialized, a D10, a D10, a D6, and a D6. For me, it seems very sensible that I am going to probably go with average for Vivi, because I want there to be a specialization, of course, for his spellcasting of willpower being a D10. I want his source of I want his mana pool to be larger, which is a huge contribution. Then on top of that, I want there to be a sensibility on his character is built. The one thing that is a sure thing about Vivi is he is powerful, even if he doesn't know it. He has this core of power that he continues to unlock as he grows and understands the world. So that's never in question. However, I still think also he is not relatively strong. So first off, his might is going to be basically a D6. And, you know, now that I'm kind of thinking about it, I think I might actually go back on my word. Instead of going average, I'm going to go specialized with 2 D10s and 2 D6s. Because as you play through the game, Vivi is never a constitutional behemoth by any means. He has a lower hit point pool that would make sense of him, who he is as a black mage. Of course, there's ways in the game you can build into it, make it stronger. I'm not into those semantics as far as building. But then also, he is continually turning around corners, falling on his face, dropping on his butt. He is not very acrobatic or even really has a great balance when it comes to movement. So it would only make sense that I would drop his might and his dex to a D6. And that allows me to then specialize his willpower being 10 and his insight being 10, which I would say as he grows through the game, his insight grows as he understands the world. But at the very beginning, he's very trusting, he's very naive, and there's not a lot that he won't do if he's just told to do it. And that's where I think mechanically might be a little bit of a lack of comparison when I'm doing Fabula Ultima, but I feel this is the best way to build him going on. So we've established those attributes. They are applied to exist now in his hit point pool, which is a very underwhelming 35, but he's got a fantastic mind point pool to start with. Then we're going to jump into section 6, which is calculate your hit points. Like I said, the automation does that. The mind points, that does that. Inventory points, he doesn't have any classes that would give him more inventory points. And then his defense and his magic defense and his initiative are currently defaulted to what it should be based on stats. Remember, though, when you create a character, that can change as you start to get items, which I believe goes into section 7, using a starting budget of 500 Zenit to purchase your equipment, then add any leftovers and to roll a 2d6 plus 10 to determine initial savings. So I'm going to go ahead and put in here real quick 500 Zenit, so we know what we're working with. And of course, since we're starting in the game, I'm not going to do anything that is over the top. I'm going to go with the bare basics here and make sure the certain things are respected. So the first thing I'm going to do is consider his weapon. And remember, he needs normally an arcane category item, because some of his spells are based off of successes of using arcane, or at least his skills. So I want to make sure he has that. So I'm going to just go with a staff. In Final Fantasy IX, he usually uses staffs or rods, but they interchange quite a bit based on what type of things he unlocks and spells he can learn through those items. So yeah, we're going to go with staff, which is 100 Zenit. So I'm immediately going to deduct 100 Zenit. And I'm going to go into items here, character creation, equipment. Basic equipment. Then I'm going over here to weapons and for just a bit. And we're going to find staff. There we go. Boom. There you go, Phoebe. So in his items, he should now have a staff as an option. I'm going to just go ahead and equip it. The marking equipping isn't exactly necessary in other things, other versions of playing Fabula Ultima. I do this so the automation makes sense. So that's why you want to make sure if you're using Foundry, make sure the items you're using are equipped. Otherwise, it's not going to apply to any of the roles as it's supposed to. Then we're going to look at armor, and say he's going to be pretty base as well. I wouldn't say no armor. I'm going to give him a little bit of something to rely on. I think I'm going to give him a silk shirt, which is 100 Zenit again. So we're going to drop to 300 now. And it doesn't have any martial requirements or anything like that. But the silk shirt, as we bring it up, go back to armor. Silk shirt. Now I'm going to look at the attributes here. You notice here it's a cost of 100. I've already deducted that. The initiative is -1. So when I equip that, my initiative level is going to drop by 1. And then its formulas is you get pluses based on your dex and your magic defense on your insight. So since there's no pluses on the defense, my defense doesn't go up at all. But if you look at my magic defense, it says the insight +2. So I'm getting to have +2 to my magic defense based off my insight, which is the normal calculation. Insight is your magic defense, for better words, until you apply armor. So I am going to throw that into my armor. And I'm going to equip that. Now you'll watch this. My initiative should go to -1. You'll notice my magic defense should go up to 2 when I do that, which it does. And it says also I am currently equipped with my silk shirt. So that being said, after that, when you kind of start building into things, you have extra money, you can see, of 300 Zenit. This is often used for a lot of people that are building other classes that want to use shields and all that. I'm not doing that with Vivi, so I'm going to maintain the 300 Zenit for now. You could also argue maybe a small accessory or something like that if you can find it in the right price, but I'm not about going through the listing of that when it comes down to that. So that being said, I have budgeted my 500 Zenit and spent basically 200 to purchase equipment. It's also worth reminding, you pretty much just have traveling equipment in Fabula Ultima. There's nothing beyond that. You don't have to worry about rationing food or anything like that. That's all embedded in the system of travel, all of that stuff. So, and if you're curious about how some of that stuff works as far as using like unique items, or not using unique items, but having one, check out my video on Fabula points. It says how you could probably use that for something quick. Like I think I use an example of someone who wouldn't traditionally have lockpicks, like a rogue, they could use a Fabula point to say they found a lockpick if they were needing to try to get out. But there's things you can do with that, but keep in mind, you don't really need to make an inventory list based on it. It's basically assumed if you have classes, it would make sense you probably have that type of stuff beyond or prior to any intricate equipment that you would use to have in combat. So that being said, we're jumping out of that. And actually, no, I've got to do my formula. I add my leftovers to a roll of 2d6 times 10. So we're going to go ahead and do that real quick. Roll my 2d6. Okay, so 5, so another times 10, another 50. So Vivi's got some money to spend on. Man, if you ever played Final Fantasy IX, you know that money is going away quick, because surely someone's going to hustle him out of it. He just doesn't know any better. He's a poor wizard boy. But that's it on that. And then, like I said, we would go into section 8 is to describe your character and choose their name and pronouns. I already did it to have it already put in for my Foundry. Their pronouns are, let's see here, I think I have it on stats here. I've sworn that's in here. Oh, I'm blind as a bat. It's right up here when it says pronouns. So it is identified he is he, him. So that will be his pronouns. And we're done with the character as far as creating them and as far as getting them to level 5. But I said we're going to go ahead and go into level 10 with them. So now that you see how quick and easy it could be outside of some of my little bit of rant, I had him from start to finish done probably in about 15-20 minutes. And it'd be probably quicker if I just didn't give you any insights or talk or anything like that. I could have probably gotten him done in probably about 7 to 8. But that's neither here nor there. It's all about teaching and showing you how fun and easy it can be. So now that we're done with the 5 levels, we're going to start building them into a little more lethal and impactful Black Mage as we go into level 10. All right, we're hitting the tail end of this build, and I'm going to go a little quicker since I've already kind of shown what the sensibility is as far as building Vivi from the start. I think what I'm going to do is going into level 10, I am going to focus really hard on building him into Elementalist, even though just the next 5 levels will put me one short of mastering him out. And once I look at it, I might evaluate it and kind of just, inch over to that level 11 so we can at least show how impactful he can be once he masters that. So starting from this, like I said, I'm level 5, so I'm just going to keep going in sequential level up as we go. So it's going to be level 6 now. We're going into classes. I'm going to go ahead and put my next level into Elementalist. We're going to go back into Elemental Magic. And since I originally built him to have the 3 core spells that can target both groups and single targets, I think I'm going to do 2 things. And you can do it any way you want, but I'm just kind of adding some flair to it. Since the first 3 I picked were all about distributing damage to the group, I'm going to go with a few more that have single target impact and do their what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to hit harder. And the first one I'm going to go with, since I took my next level of Elementalist Magic, let me make sure I did the math on that. No, I have not yet. There it goes. I'm going to take Flare, which Flare is a cool sound. It's not to your traditional Flare spell that you saw in my video, and it's a very high-end level spell at the near the end of the game of Final Fantasy, but this is their way of wording a much more impactful fire spell that isn't, protected by other IPs. So, but it says here in Flare, you channel a single ray of fire towards your foe. Its temperature so high that it will pierce through most defenses. The target suffers high roll plus 25 fire damage. Damage dealt by the spell ignores resistances, which is really cool that you can bypass resistances with the spell because it is just so overwhelmingly sourced and empowered by magic. So I'm going to go ahead and throw Flare into it. Make sure it carries over. Yep, there's Flare. Then I'm going to go into level 7 and back to my class and invest in Elementalist again. I'm going to then do the same thing, very similar. Iceberg, which is the same exact thing, except it's ice magic. Damage dealt by the spell ignores resistances. So, and if you notice here, like I said, it does say the MP is higher, which makes sense because you're doing a single impact of more damage, and it's for one creature. So I'm going to move Iceberg over here. We see it on my list, and that should, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spells. I should have, or was it 6? Oh, sorry, it's 5 spells because one of them is Entropy. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spells. So I need to make sure I'm invested in my 5th, which will cap that out and make sure I'm good across the board. My math's mapping, it says level 7. Classes of investments is 7, and skills of those classes is 7. So everything's good. Then I'm going to go ahead and go, once again, another level into Elementalist, taking another spell in the similar means, but instead of going towards doing the lightning version, I'm going to make it a little more unique. I'm going to take Vortex, and it's basically it says a roaring gale surrounds you, blowing away arrows and bullets. Until the spell ends, you gain a +2 bonus to your defenses and range attacks. I kind of like that, just to have some defensive utility. It wouldn't be maybe exactly how it would be built in Vivi, but I do want him to have some sort of defensible abilities that doesn't rely on his party just always protecting him. So once again, I made sure I'm level 8. Oh, I forgot to change myself to 8. Ooh. So it's 8 of 8. I've invested in my extra point already, so I just need to throw Vortex into there. And I should have 7 spells that are in Elementalist now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, sorry. I should have 6 in there. Let me make sure that's right. Throwing myself off with all this talk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So, yes, 6 spells. Because I forgot I did take magical artillery to give me a little bit of a buff. So, that puts me at 8. We're going into level 9. That's my classes. I'm going to put another skill into Elementalist. Take 1 more into Elemental Magic. We're going to go through that list. And I am going to... We're just going to go ahead and go with Terra, which is basically a distribution to either a single target or multiple, and it does earth damage. And it says the spell cannot target creatures who are flying, floating, falling, or otherwise midair. But the opportunity says if you hit and crit with it, each target hit by the spell performs 1 fewer actions on their next turn, which is insane if that ever hits. That if you hit all three monsters and you basically remove all of their actions next turn, that is such a huge turn of event if you're able to achieve that. So yeah, without a doubt, I'm throwing that into it and giving a little more of a punch of earth into Vivi's arsenal here. So we are now at 9, skill level 9, and I should have 7 spells. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I this is just my calculations. You don't have to be this invested in making sure it makes sense. I just want to make sure when I'm presenting it, I'm not looking a fool and not doing my math right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Make sure I did that right. And that's exactly why I did that. Yeah, I just miscounted while I was ranting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is correct. So, but you can see quickly in making sure you do your checks and balances is a lot. It's very important. It could be a little more taxing in trying to make sure you got everything right on pen and paper, but you're also not leveling this quick normally, so it's easy to keep track on this in the slower process. Even though in Fabula Ultima you can level pretty quickly, pretty much almost every 2 levels, unless you're using optional rules to accelerate that leveling. But that is where I'm at level 9. We're going to go into level 10. And man, we are close with Elementalist here at level 9. We're 1 away from maxing it out. I'm just going to go through the spells here real quick and see if there's anything of significance I missed real quick that would change his arsenal. Thunderbolt will probably be good. Ventus is cool with the fact that if you have an opportunity, each flying target is by the spell's forced to land immediately, and I'm pretty sure that's throughout the scene. Because otherwise, it's not an ability that you do. It's just they lose that ability. So yeah, at least that's how I would make the rule on that. But I think I'm just going to, in case they ever need a heavy hitter of Thunderbolt damage, I'm just going to go with the easy peasy and go with Thunderbolt, which is the high damage single target 25 plus your high roll bolt damage, and it ignores resistances. So we'll throw that in there. With my elemental. That's my investment, and I should have 8 spells in the Elementalist, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that is correct. So we're done at level 10, but I feel that we shouldn't deny Vivi in his power, getting so close to having some sort of impact. I am going to level him to level 11. Which will now give him his first mastery of a class. And I haven't gone over these in videos, and I think I'll do a video soon on this since you're now seeing it, but we're going to do a quick snippet on it. I'm putting him at level 10, which means he has mastered a class, and that means 2 things have been achieved. He gets to pick one more thing off of his elemental skill list, but then he gets to pick a heroic skill, which is something that allows you to do something much more impactful or cool. Some of them are just giving you more mind points, hit points. There's a whole list, and we'll do a video over that. And I think it's important for you to understand what the value of mastering those class levels are at. But since we're doing this, I know for a fact that there's probably some stuff in Elementalist we could do that is going to be impactful. If I was going to go the other way and do Entropist to level 10, they have one of my favorite abilities, or one options you have as a heroic skill, and you learn the spell Comet. And yes, it is awesome. It does mass damage of a non-elemental damage, so you can't have an affinity towards it. And it hits all, I think, up to as many targets that you have on the field, beyond, even I think beyond a target of 3. But I'm not here about that. We're going to go ahead and take the Elementalist last skill. And for the hell of it, I'm going to add just one more thing of magic artillery. So now when he casts, he gets basically +4 to his magic checks, which is really nice. It's +4 to his rolls. And he's going to be normally, I think as an Elementalist, the spells are Insight Willpower. Yes. So he'll be rolling 2d10s +4 to hit, which is a very nice arsenal to have in your favor in rolling. But as I said, we went ahead and we got the first investment of that skill being maxed out. We got his 10th investment, level 10 investment, but now we got to do a heroic skill. And I'm going to check to see in this, there should be something on heroic skills. Yeah, here we go. Heroic skills. And oh, goodness gracious, I have not just been through this yet. Yeah, this is why we need to probably do a video that talks about some of the things that we can get, because I have heroic skills from the core rulebook, from the high fantasy, from the natural fantasy, from the techno atlas fantasy, and then I don't know what BC is actually. I'll have to look into that. If you guys know what BC is short for, let me know. I might be just drawing a blank in something obvious, but it looks like it's a lot of stuff maybe relevant to necromancy. I don't know, but I do know in the with all the new stuff they're coming out with the bestiary, they're also going to be doing some fixes of bonus content classes like the Ace of Cards and I think the Necromancer to be balanced to be more official content. So I'm excited about that. But we're going to go ahead and I'm going to pause real quick here to see what I can find, so I'm not just wasting anyone's time. All right, I am back, and I just went over the core rulebook just real quick, and I saw 2 things that stick out. Like I said, there's a lot of things you can pick, and we'll go over those in a different video. But since I have capped out my Elementalist to level 10 and taking a heroic skill, I have 2 options I'm considering. One is a powerful spell, which can be applied to Elementalist, Entropist, Spiritist, and Chimerist. And basically what it means is from this moment on, when you cast a spell, it will deal 5 more damage to each creature it hits. And then the amount of extra damage increases to 10 when you are at level 40 or higher, which is pretty nice. However, I saw another one that is going to be particular to the Elementalist class, which is going to be, find it right here, it's just called Volcano, which sounds awesome. So it is, like I said, a heroic skill based to the Elementalist. It says requirements. You must have mastered the Elemental class. I'm going to move this in just real quick. And it says, you channel the fury of the planet into a powerful wave of fire and magma. Choose one option. One creature you can see suffers 50 fire damage, or you can choose any number of creatures you can see, and each of them suffers 30 fire damage. The amount increases by 5 if you're level 20 or higher, or 10 if you're 40 or higher. Damage dealt by the spell ignores resistances and immunities. So that is a huge spell that basically bypasses some of the even more threatful creatures in a circumstance where fire may not be as impactful. So yeah, I think I'm going to take that and I'm going to throw Volcano bound into my spell book. And we should see it there. It is now part of that, and it is in my catalog spell book with my heroic skill. And just like that, we have built Vivi Ornitier, and while it may not have gone into certain there could be debates on how I could build him and do all of that, but I think I still hit the mark pretty good on what he is based on being a black mage. And I could go further into the bond section here and we go into that, but I really don't want to do that to give spoilers if you haven't played the game or if you want a refresher. But do know he is one of the most complex and his story changes a decent amount, where some reflections of him change from other characters, where he's still kind of the same guy overall. He's just becomes more lost in his own existence. And bonds can be created in some sensible means, but I decided to stop putting bonds in these character creations unless it's just super meaningful and sensible, because I don't want to ruin any spoilers on it. So that being said, we have built Vivi Ornitier. I hope you had fun going through this much quicker video, and I aim to make this a little more precise and short-winded as I do more of these. But that being said, we're going to end this session and we're going to call it a night. Okay, well, I think that was a very successful character creation. And personally for me, I felt that I was able to articulate how to build a character a little more efficiently this time than my last video with Kane Highwind, even though I had great responses and great comments on it. But I also did have a few recommendations of process of how to build it more efficiently, and I appreciated that insight and those recommendations, and I feel like I was able to apply it in this video. So that being said, when it comes to the next video, I feel that I'm going to be ready even more efficiently for you, because I want you guys to enjoy my content. I want you to learn from it, and I want you to continue to come back and be part of this community, because while there's so many larger notoriety games, I feel like Fabula Ultima is growing, and it deserves your attention and deserves your inquiries and just overall excitement to play. And I want to do everything I can to invite you to do so. So until the next video of How to Fabula Ultima, I hope you have a good day, I hope you have a great night, and I cannot wait to play more Fabula Ultima.